Hi everybody, welcome to Control Alt and Compete. Today we're joined by Mark McCready. Mark McCready started off his career as a college lecturer and he's now the CEO of Scottish Esports. Hi everybody, welcome to Control Alt and Compete. Today we're joined by Mark McCready, the CEO of Scottish Esports. Hi Mark, how you doing?
Hiya, nice to meet you.
I know, we've known each other for a while now.
I know, it's been a wee while.
I was actually saying to Blair, I've got an Instagram picture of us at Resonate and then you've got the bright fizz yellow jacket on.
Yep.
That was good, that was 2018, eh?
Me down the front building the GT Omega and James in the back on his phone.
Yeah, I know, that's what it used to always
The
be.
cogs.
I'm surprised when my neck's not really hunched. I've got to try and make sure my posture's a bit better. You know what, Mark, we're looking at the bio yesterday and I was looking at your career so far and you know you're still young and you've done a hell of a lot. I'd want to find out, like how did you get into gaming? What's your earliest memories of gaming?
Oh, we could go back prehistoric to the early days of like 2 years old.
Yeah.
There is a photo of me. It's not PG.
Right.
But I'm in a nappy in front of a computer with the old sort of CRT monitor and sitting playing Age of Empires 2.
Nice.
Couldn't even type anything, so I used to have to get grandparents over and things to type in all the cheats because I didn't know how to play the game.
Yeah.
Just control, build houses,
And
build
who done
farms.
that for you? Was that your mum and dad? Was that his?
It was anybody that was in the house looking after us. It was a case of, can you put this in so I can get the fancy car that can go around and shoot people?
Yeah.
Just so I can win the game.
Yeah.
So it used to be from there, and then eventually playing games just casually with friends growing up. From your Pokemon and everything into when I went to high school, we ended up looking at Call of Duty, and I used to start doing quick scoping, some of the sort of MLG sort of side of it, but I always stuck to more the sniping.
Quick scoping, that's like a blast from the past, eh? I remember that for a tactic. So were you good at that? So Call of Duty, was that on console then?
Yeah, it was PlayStation 3 days, probably like early 2010s, and we used to have like clans and things like that online, so I was very involved with that side. You had two genres. You had the competitive sniping and then your trick shotting.
Right.
I was awful at trick shotting. So we used to do sort of like 4 versus 4, 3 versus 3 quick scoping competitions against each other, and it'd be online.
Yep.
Meet people, you put up your match highlights onto YouTube, edit them into montages as well.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been about for a while.
And would you say then, like it was a first-person shooter, or you spoke Age of Empires? Like, what would you say is your kind of favourite genre then?
I've always liked the strike between. I think I've always edged back to more of the strategy side, where I don't know. I think the game that I really did harness was Rocket League, but I also cared a lot more about the strategy rather than the shooting. I like the action of like a first-person shooter, but like the strategy elements a lot of the time. So
it was always more competitive-based games that you like.
It was always. I think it's up until recently where, I mean, from being in esports and doing gaming day to day, you just want to switch off. You don't really want to.
So do you think then? So do you do single-player games then, or when you switch off? You mean like for a movie or?
I've tried a couple of things. Tried kind of taking a more casual approach to esports. Started reading more books. I didn't know much about TV, film culture growing up because I was too busy playing video games.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
So
you've got what to catch up on.
Re-experience
That's
everything.
fine. That's good. That's a good back catalogue. Yeah.
And also my partner doesn't know much about the film TV side of it, so I'm now reintroducing her. So I'm now understanding people's frustrations.
So you're just sick of people
references.
saying, "Oh, remember you seen Forrest Gump?" And you're like, "Nah." Have you seen Star Wars? Nah. So you're just catching up on all that.
Run Forrest Run. What was that? But no, it's been good. I think trying to find a switch off has been really important, and I think more recently I've managed to do that. Playing games like Borderlands and
Borderlands 3,
Yes.
yeah, I've actually got back into that. Seeing it was on Game Pass, I downloaded it on the Xbox, and I've been playing it again. It's good.
It's brilliant.
It's like the Vault Plus edition. It's 190 odd gig or something like that. This one.
I did see it. I was like, oh, don't know if I'm going to have enough storage. But I've never played a Borderlands before, and that was fantastic. So.
And 4's coming out, so I think that's why they're giving it away.
Queued up. It's a lot of big games this year.
I know.
So
looking
forward to it.
We're speaking to Pigeon the other day as well, and we're looking at marathons coming out, which I'm obviously a Bungie fanboy, so hopefully that's going to be good.
It's going to stay with the helmet.
And yeah, it needs to happen because I feel like at the moment I'm kind of. Once again, you find it hard to switch off. I'm exactly the same. I think with gaming, I like to find a game I can get lost in. And at the moment, Valorant, playing that, my wife, I keep saying it, I feel it sound like Columbo talking about wife all the time, but she's always beating me at it, so it's no fun. Because, she's nearly into diamond and I'm sitting struggling to get any gold, so Yeah.
It's I think that's the other part, is a lot of the esports games are team based.
Yeah.
And I guess that's part of where you've got to have a team and you've got to have the friends that are interested in the same game as you. And I think I've started drifting between different games more often now. So to try and find an esports title to get everybody to go, right, can we get a team together for this? Everyone's like, yeah, but I don't like this part, I don't like that. It's just there's so many options as well. Someone wants to play Rocket League, someone wants to play Call of Duty, Fortnite, try to get people in the same.
Oh, it's like when we used to go to Tea in the Park a lot, the music festivals, and that was exactly the same. Actually, the bigger the crowd, the worse it was, because that one wants to go to this place, that one's now hungry, you want to go to the toilet, you'd never get anything. So yeah, it's tricky, and it's also tricky trying to manufacture teams and friends out of this as well, and playing with people you don't know, so it's tricky in that space.
It's hard, I think, trying to get the right people in the right rooms, and I think even from the esports side of it as well, there's a lot of sort of hidden work that gets done, and trying to
Make
push
these
that to
things
the
happen.
forefront to say, look, this is what's happening. Trying to get all those moving pieces happening, the right people in the room for it has been.
And it's a shame because there's usually those people that are trying to push that, and the people that are trying to push it too don't realise the effort some people are trying to do to make sure they have a place to play and to find that as well. So if you're into esports, you're better just being a player, eh?
Yeah, it's good. Well, I don't know. Never been a player, so I can't
I think
judge.
No, I think looking at it, because you get carried about and you get to shout your demands. So I think player seems like the best place to be in it. So, I was going to say as well, Mark, you've had a great career. You know, you certainly you worked with us. You worked with let's say us Esports Scotland, and then you went to British Esports. How did you find them when you went to British Esports? When you seen, right, I've got a chance here to kind of grow it from a kind of, did that set the fire off for you to really try and do a kind of something at a higher government level, even in esports?
I think when you first get into gaming and you start finding about esports and the teams, you start to build this idea from things you see on YouTube, Twitter, whatnot. That it's all built up, that it's already there. You just need to set your team up, get involved, build a club, pull it together. But it's a lot more complicated. And I think when I transitioned into the British Esports role, I was open to a whole new sort of dimension of esports that I didn't know existed. Remember trying to set up the universities in Scotland to talk to each other and trying to get students in the room to work with each other, and what we can do is societies. But then going to the British Esports side, we started having discussions about, well, where should we position this with government, the UK government through Gambling Commission. There was a lot of different perspectives that I didn't initially think about, and these started opening up a lot more in depth, where people enjoy the playing aspect. There's a lot more that is getting put in place as a foundation just to allow people to expand on that from the beginning. So,
and what would you say, so here's one for you, right? What would you say was different compared to the challenges you faced then to now? Like, do you think, what barriers have came down since then?
I think,
if any,
we kind of have some of the same. I think when you start opening up these conversations and trying to improve, I think when we look at even something like safeguarding, as soon as you start to open the consideration of safeguarding,
massive. People don't even think about it, but then
keep going down so many different routes. And then it's not also things related to gaming. You're working with local law as well, of how do we run a company legally, and how do we put right resources, support out for organisations to adopt into their everyday practice. So there's always something else to kind of keep going on and doing. So when you're trying to find a base point, it's really hard to build
just
out.
like plugging holes and spinning plates,
It does feel like that. I think the student champs side of it with British Esports, seeing how it can work in schools, the BTEC qualification were fantastic things, looking at how education can utilise esports in gaming. I think the one thing that we started to realise more is we started talking about esports quite a lot. It's the buzzword that we keep throwing about, but it was gaming. And I think when we think of esports, we've got esports issues, but there's gaming issues as well that esports is a subsector of, but they extend into the wider gaming sphere of what can we be doing better as gamers in gaming spaces, how do we use it better in education as gaming rather than just esports, and esports can be that vehicle. I've mentioned safeguarding. Esports, we can work with schools to create teams. So there could be a school team with children, students and children involved, but it's regulated by the teacher, typically how a football sort of team would be built, and we can connect them with another school to compete. Instead of them having to find teammates online that they might not know, playing with random strangers, we've already started addressing some of the safeguarding issues just by introducing esports as a concept.
And the trickiest thing as well, what I kind of found regarding education, to begin with, you were trying to not sell it into education, but you were talking about all the great STEM work you could do, talking about all the great things, cognitive ability, everything that was great for the kids. But then it's kind of came back round where they're saying, well, what's wrong with just the competitiveness? What's wrong with just being like another sport? You know, you don't say it's football because it's good for your this. You know, you look at football because it's a sport. And it's competitive and you get teamwork. So I think nowadays some of the conversations I've heard are people are saying, well, look, it's fine to actually be just competitive. Don't worry about having to sell it into why it's great for STEM and it fits into the curriculum. So it's a weird way to kind of go in.
We kind of had a discussion about this recently where some people might see a Scottish Esports body or Esports Wales or British Esports and say, well, they're just trying to encourage kids to play more video games. Issue is they're already playing video games. We 100%. Don't need to be encouraging them more. What we're trying to do is implement best practice and safeguarding to support them. And part of that is just so they can understand that it has to be a balanced, healthy life. A lot of kids are playing it in isolation at home.
Agreed.
Can education be a vehicle to encouraging it as an extracurricular activity? Can they learn more about it at like a higher level, so through the esports MPA, or just implementing the use of games in wider contexts like English? So when you're doing your essays and reports, you've got to read a poem, a book. Can you do that on a game, just like you would with film or TV? So trying to look at
read the user license agreement at the beginning of every game. You'll be
copy
fine.
and paste terms and conditions.
No, but it's true. I mean, I've got obviously James, Willow, and Jackson, and you know, games in a sense. I know that it's helped them, especially when my little girl tried to play Sims. She found out really quickly that she needed to read. You know, you don't realise if you can't actually read, there's a lot of things you take for granted. Why you would press A, why you would press B. So yeah, no, it's a good way for kids to try and do that. And maybe there's even some games out there now that they can talk to you with the text as well. So that's a good way to learn. So and kids just want to learn by gamified experiences. It's the best way for them, I think, to learn if they can.
I'm probably not the best person, but even the idea of the different words and phrases and the sayings, the different themes. If you play like a medieval game, the characters talk in a different way. The voice actors embody how that would have been spoken. There's a lot of context that goes in, which you also get in film and TV. So there's a lot of things you can bring across. But right now, it's not something that's recognised.
Yeah, and we've got lots of European friends. Lara has anyway that play online, and some girls, and they speak perfect English, but a lot of the phrases that she says are the Valorant quotes and phrases because she learns English through that. And then you hear sometimes in the mic her shouting at her mum in like her native language, but they come back to perfect English again. So there's all those benefits as well.
We had a chat in the staff room the other day. Or before Easter, and we had one of the lecturers come in because he wanted to find out a little bit.
They're always at you, Mark. They're always at you because you're the esports guy. Do you get it every break?
Not really. They're really interested, but they don't have a clue around what it is. And I remember when he came in, and he was just standing watching, listening to them when the headset's on talking, they started putting on this more like American accent, like the Americanisms as well. And as soon as the headset came off, it went back to Scottish, and he was like, no, I can't do this. I have to step outside. This isn't for me.
No, even if I try and speak slower, I feel like I'm speaking a different language. So, so where would you say that now is right? Where would you say, what's your vision then? What would you love to see happen? If I said to you, Mark, here's a bit of paper, just write what you want to happen. What would you love to see happen in Scotland anyway, regarding Scottish esports?
I think it's kind of stripping away the esports part for a second and realising that a lot of the issues that create esports issues come from gaming. I think when we talk about gaming, I think we need to start creating healthier habits around it. For an activity that's there, it's only going to increase. It has only increased in participation. We don't really know. We have UK data on gamer consumers, particularly around young people, but we don't have anything in Scotland either. So where we can look at it from a UK perspective, we can't understand how a Scottish culture, for example, might impact different from the south of England or Wales or Northern Ireland. So how we can better understand how people are engaging with games, we don't really know. We can go off of that data, or by talking.
And are you meaning things like, are they getting addicted to the games? Are you meaning like that they're not doing it healthy, they're not looking after themselves? Are you talking about all?
Yeah, the wide picture with it. Right now we have to go off of what we can assume. So particularly young kids, do they stay at home to play video games? Do they go out and meet up with friends? Are there spaces that they can go and access around
That's
it?
an issue as well.
Can they learn about games?
Can they go and speak? Can they go anywhere else to play with each other?
Yep. Where do you find information about games? So if you're looking for correct information or guidance about gaming or how you can do it better or about specific games, it's on the internet. And as soon as you say that to a parent, the alarm bells go. Wait, they're now on the internet looking for things. So now you've got these issues where I'm just kind of surprised that I've grown up with the internet, born in 98, so internet's always been about.
So I was just kind of kicking off really when you were born, as you've always had it.
So it's been part of my life growing up, but I still couldn't tell you who to turn to, or who would have, where they would even get the information from to support parents and carers around it. So
and it's a tricky one because even to try and even keep up with it, because now obviously VR is getting bigger, and I don't know, I've never really adopted to playing VR, but I know certainly my little girl and her friends, they put on VR headsets. I mean, I tell the story where they're all in the house one time, they brought their VRs together to play together, right? It was a sunny day, so I was like, go outside and play. I swear, half an hour later, they were on the patio with their heads as close to the outside wall as they could, outside with the VR on, right? But then there's a scarier side, because then we started finding out, in a sense, they said they're playing Gorilla Tag, and one of the girls had said they're doing VR chat. And I was like, whoa. No, just as soon as that got said, because you can't even see what they're looking at, and we kind of looked into it, we had to tell her mum, like, don't do it, but once again, the technology is moving that fast, and the game's moving that fast, the kids are getting exposed to it. And actually, I would only throw under the bus with this, but I think she actually stopped doing the VR because it was actually affecting her mental health and her Willow's friends.
I think there's a lot of different bits, and I think the one position that we all have to come from with is we're not trying to say that there's only good with gaming, there's also bad. But how do we start to understand how to better that? Because like I said, kids are playing video games. That doesn't have any sign of changing, only increasing. So how do we start to put those things into place and understand better? Can we put things to support this? Should we discourage certain games because they're not adhering to online safety or protecting young people? Well, tagged as like 3+. What can we be doing as well in Scotland as a Scottish focused initiative to support?
And it sounds like even primary gaming should be a subject in itself.
Don't say that to a primary school teacher.
No, see, the thing is, I mean, last year we'd done some stuff with some primary schools up in Angus, and it was great because one of the teachers that we met right away, I said, into gaming, and I think she wasn't expecting me. Anyway, she came back to me and said, yeah, she loves Halo. Yep. And I was like, all right. So once again, there's a generation, I think, teachers now that are coming through that are brought up with gaming that are maybe understand it a bit better, but then there's still a generation that are looking at it thinking, no way.
Yeah.
But even when you're talking about, there are some classes, I won't throw any class under the bus that I was taught at high school, it's never done me any good, but I think gaming ones would be good for kids to,
I think
even the online safety ones as part of the curriculum would be great.
I think that's the purpose of the Esports MPA that was developed by SQA, where it's the equivalent to like a National 5 or higher, or a National 4 standard grade back in the day. I was the guinea pig year for national, so it's the equivalent to your standard grades in a higher qualification, and they're the size of a higher, so they're only 3 units, and they cover esports industry, game performance, and promote and organise an online event. So in industry, we have a whole outcome around that focused on online safety, code of conduct, professional practice. And those components are needed to better understand, well, what's the structure of esports and gaming in general? What are the different genres? What are PEGI ratings? What sort of things do we need to look out for if you were to set up an account for a young kid? Is there things that you can do? We do sort of cover these. I think that's something that I'm looking at is there a direct resource somewhere that other people that are delivering this can do it? I think that's where Scottish Esports can come in and develop some of those initial resources to pinpoint to the different areas.
And start to grow it. And so when you're actually teaching it then, how do you feel the kids are, what's the kind of feedback from the kids? Are they saying we know this, or how clued up are they? Because obviously they've got the internet and they're living and breathing it, so how do you find them like trying to catch out with stuff or?
Day one, oh, I know everything about gaming.
Yeah.
Play it all the time. It's my pastime. It's
Yeah.
my hobby. But they start to learn, they don't.
And what's the attendance like for your classes for the gaming? Yeah, I've heard that a lot as well.
A lot of the students turn up every week. I think we've seen that sort of change across where some students are boycotting other classes, but I think that's down to they just don't like that class, so they're avoiding. But the esports class is what they sign up for, and I think that's something that we're also looking at is how do we constantly change this to help develop the different pathways for them to move on to something that they want to do. I think when we look at the MPA, it's a small course, so you would do like a higher or an MPA in computing science, but you wouldn't necessarily say you're industry ready after doing a higher. You'd be encouraged to go into further learning. That's exactly what the MPA Esports is for. It's to give them an understanding, be able to navigate. One of the best outcomes that I've had for esports industry, probably people wouldn't like it, is I had a more mature student come onto the course, and by the end of it...
What age is the more mature?
Sort of 25 plus.
Like an ancient student. Yep.
I know it is. They came onto the course and they were like, I've tried different college courses in the past, because at the end of the course every year we look to destinations where can we push them on to what they want to do. And they said they wanted to go into animation, but not games. They wanted to go into more traditional sides. And he said that the main reason behind that is I enjoyed this course. I've always loved games, but I want to keep it as a hobby. I think that's where I need to keep it. I'd be happy with that in my life. From an education side, that's a perfect outcome. They still want to engage with it, but they don't want to continue on. I think that's the use of this MPA, is trying to help people understand
where
gaming,
they want to be,
how to best practice. If you want to learn more, here's where you go to. And I think that's something that's been missing for.
And you say the more mature at 25. Some people, I remember growing up, they knew what they wanted to be when they were 17. Some people don't know what they want to be till in their 30s. So once again, if they can have a course like that helps them direct them where they want to be. Give them a bit of taste of everything.
I think that's where trying to build the infrastructure in Scotland then comes in. I think we've developed some of these initial pathways for people to learn about esports, learn about different organisation, events, teams that are there that are practicing appropriately. But then also, how do we develop it to become an industry in Scotland as well? How do we get your Rocket League majors or your CSGO majors, etc., to come along to Scotland?
Well, I know there's venues that are always looking out for that. I've spoken to some venues that have said they would love to have a CAS major or what happened. We've had the Fortnite one come up, so it could probably start to come. But it's more and more happening in the UK, right? So if it starts in London, hopefully it can work its way up here.
I think it's part of us as well to work at how do we show that there is an audience here, that they are going to get numbers. Sure, people will be coming international, but is there an audience in Scotland that want to go along to these events? I think that's part of the pitch that we have to build at Scottish.
So how did the Nordics do it then? How do you think that's happened, in other areas of the world? What would you say the journey is that they've done it?
It's really interesting. I think from watching, I've had a lot of time spent around academics that have been from different backgrounds. There was a book that was published called the Routledge Handbook of Esports, which was basically contributed to by leading academics in their field around the world that have published in those specific areas. So law, events, culture, about esports. And they found that, for example, LAN events originate from the Nordics. So that was part of their culture. They looked at it socially as well. Why did that start to happen? Long winter months, people didn't have things to go out to do. It's not like our excuse of rain. Rain, you can go out and walk, it's just a bit miserable. But with basically being snowed in, it was an option to keep people engaged through gaming. And that slowly built up, and events like DreamHack started out.
Their LAN's amazing.
But that started out from a school library. And it built out over time just by people engaging with, they knew how people wanted to engage with gaming, and they slowly scaled up to Jönköping and now over to Stockholm. So
when you seen the LAN at DreamHack, when we were over there, people were bringing their Christmas trees in and it was all tinsel hanging and it was fantastic. I thought, Do you know, I thought completely missed the boat because I grew up in a small town, Kinross, and there's a group of us that like gaming, but I would love to have went back and been a teenager and been involved in that and just been there for a whole weekend. Doing the LAN events.
That's what I kind of think back to is I grew up in a village where I used to grow up in town with all my friends, and then we moved out to a village outside. So going out to play wasn't really an option, and I'm sure there's a lot of kids that are in similar positions where they just live that distance away. Didn't have the best internet, but the only way that I could keep in touch with friends was playing games online or extracurricular club at school, or getting driven in to go to football practice or anything like that. So that's the sort of things that I look at and go, actually, these start out from very bare bones. It doesn't require a lot. It just requires understanding the culture, society around you, and how you build it up.
And talking of building that up, and I think, I mean, you and I both know John Jackson from Esports Wales, and I think, you know, they're a fantastic, organisation to look at for what they've done. Would you think, can you see yourself trying to emulate, in a sense, what they've done? Or, I know you spoke about talking about gaming and starting at the beginning, but, you know, is that the kind of road you would like to go down?
I've got a lot of chats with John. I really admire the work that he's done. I think he's managed to capture gaming in esports, particularly in Wales. I think this kind of comes back to as well where there's a lot we can copy and pick from other countries that have been developing. But again, it has to come down to, does that model fit Scotland overall? I think in a lot of cases, yes. I think the way that Setup inspired us to set up Scottish Esports in a really similar way is a community interest company, keeping it in the hands and the interest of the community. We're still in that sort of startup phase, but we've been trying to help a lot in the background with national strategies to local councils, the SQA qualifications. But we're looking at how do we build up a governance system, which is more of like a sort of circular economy. So if there's things that need to be done, is there channels that can be directed to go through to basically help support that change actually happen, and that it's led by people in those areas across Scotland that want to see that and can identify those changes and why.
And the education ones are such a tricky one, isn't it, to get involved in? The people are talking about, for example, like to try and get, like, okay, different regions, it feels like there's different teachers in different regions that are up on esports and they get it. It's just trying to find that universal one. Does that make sense? Like, I mean, like, you know,
they've got it though. I think, you see, from education, it's the most built up. And I think when we talk about what are we missing, like how far behind are we in Scotland, in a lot of cases we're actually pretty far ahead. You've got a national qualification that can be delivered in any school or secondary school across Scotland, also being taught in colleges. There's also the development of a HNC Esports that I'm involved with. And how that can. So
that'll be good. That'll be a good progression from the MPA, like you spoke about afterwards. And so what's that going to be focused on then? Is that, like, is there any kind of, like, is it business? Is it events? You know, how is it, once again? Is it spread out again?
I don't know if I'm able.
Fair enough.
Allowed to.
No, that's fine.
I think it's a continuation on. Okay. So I think
a bit more detail in each part.
Trying to provide more. I think the difference between the MPA is it is a small course, but the HNC is a bigger. It's a where you would go and do an MPA course at college, for example. You would have all these other sort of courses you would do to get an overall qualification. At school, you would do it along with other hires, national fives. This HNC would be a full certificate, so it would be built up of units dedicated around esports, basically.
And one last thing I'd say to you then is, obviously with esports going to be the Olympics and it's growing internationally. Can you see Scottish Esports being the organisation that would help pick, you know, players for Team GB? How do you see that?
Sort of, yeah. I think that's part of that sort of full circular economy. Yeah. Especially things like national teams. How do you even start to select? I'll be honest, I don't know. I think that's part of, especially what I'm trying to do with Scottish Esports right now with the board, is how do we develop things in a way that we're not doing everything, but we can build it with the key stakeholders in that area, so that it's done a way that can be changed in the future, but is suitable for the needs of now. So things like national teams, we would look at how we can get coaches in. Is there things that we should be implementing first, that coaches should have a certificate, for example, all the way down to clubs. And I think starting at that education level with schools, how it works in the community, building up to clubs, into leagues, into the national teams.
It sounds like to me that you're definitely approaching it from the right way, and I think you're definitely the person to do it. I think you've got the right mindset for doing it. I think considering all the bits you're really focusing on, it'll hopefully give you that groundwork as you build up. You know, I think it's just keeping the legs, keeping the light on, keeping going. You're talking about your own mental health and what you're doing to relax. I think that's a key one for you, is making sure that you can switch off, because it becomes consuming. And yeah, and when you're talking about all these different bits, and it all rests on yourself. But listen, I think you'll absolutely do it, Mark, and I wish you all the best with it. I really do. And I think, yeah, good luck, buddy.
I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you very much, mate. I do appreciate it.
Yeah.